Let's see what's happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo now. The political crisis there is coming to a head today because today marks the official end of President Joseph Kabila's second and final 5-year term as president. But because elections haven't happened there, the government says there's no one to take over from him. Let's hear this report now from Thomas Fessy.
Kinshasa, one of the liveliest places in Africa. In this roadside bar, the music was blaring at the weekend. The bodies were moving, but the faces were somber. There is a new political crisis here, and it's on everybody's minds. Today is the last day of President Joseph Kabila's second term, but there's been no election to replace him. He is accused of wanting to extend his time in office. This is the sound of street protest that took place 3 months ago to the day. Demonstrators warned Mr. Kabila that he should leave office or face civil unrest. For the families here, there are still many unanswered questions. But I've come to meet the mother of one of the young men who were killed during the demonstrations of September the 19th. She's asked me to protect her identity because she's concerned about her security. Bonjour, maman.
Bonjour.
Toutes mes condoléances.
Bien sûr. Mon fils sera un jour Fortina, c'est lui, parce que moi je suis commerçant Mbila.
Her 29-year-old son, Fortina, was shot in the head. His mother is still clinging to the hope of a proper burial.
Où on va trouver le corps de Fortina?
Where is Fortina's body? We tried to find it all this time. We were told it was at the morgue, but all we found there were soldiers.
Fortina was her eldest son. He worked as an electrician and sustained her, his younger brother and sisters. There's a formidable wealth in Congo with mines rich in cobalt, copper and gold, and yet most people struggle to scrape by. I've come to the neighbourhood of Ngirigiri. It's quite buzzing here. The roads aren't tarred here. They're dusty with open sewers running through the middle. And there's a frustration here that things aren't moving, aren't changing. And that frustration feeds discontent. And in times like these, it's a dangerous mix. And so key to solving the problem now is to reconciliate ambitions of the ruling coalition and those of the opposition. Martin Fayulu is an opposition member.
We don't have a new president because of Mr. Kabila, because Mr. Kabila prevented the Electoral Commission to organize the election.
You saying he's responsible for the political crisis?
That's right, he's responsible and he has to go.
Negotiations have stalled and the government has warned any protest will be crushed. Lambert Mende is the information minister.
Nothing will happen. Kabila will remain in office until a new president is elected. Nothing will happen. If somebody will try to disturb the security in this town, he will meet police forces as everywhere in the world.
But if people want to go out in the streets to
Which people? Those are puppets of foreigners. Those are puppets of foreigners. They are not our people.
It's now fallen to the Catholic Church to convince politicians to talk to each other. A colossal task in a country where tensions never seem to stop simmering. At the Sunday Mass, there were prayers for a nation that has yet to see a peaceful transfer of power. There was hope that talks can be held in good faith.
That's the BBC's Thomas Fessy reporting from Kinshasa. A little earlier we spoke to him live and he said that there appeared to be lighter traffic this morning in the capital, security presence not oppressive. Here in the studio we're joined by Okito Tongomo, who is president of the Congolese Support Group, an activist organisation based here in London. You heaved a very heavy sigh there when you heard the minister saying that opposition demands and the people making those demands from the opposition aren't loyal Congolese. What did that make you feel?
Very thank you. Extremely. I find that this is very aggressive and extremely unacceptable to hear this from somebody who is a minister. I see the serious issue of indignation and the denigration of the people of Congolese, and being told things like that and by a minister of the country where the peoples are claiming justice and they want to see the respect of the law. They want to see a stable regime where Mr. Kabila again is exposing the life of million Congolese by breaching the constitution, allowing himself to stay legally in power.
How significant is this day? I mean, it's a kind of like it's a deadline day, the 19th. It's officially the day that the term ends.
Yeah.
How significant is it? Because the arguments don't change on either side. What happens now? Do things just become more dangerous?
Is extremely very dangerous. The country going into a chaotic situation because Kabila has done this on a purpose, intentionally, to expose the whole nation again to a very tragic situation. We have a history of people being killed and exposing the life, like we see a testimony from a lady who was crying and she can't even bury her own child, and that is sounded the history, which is a permanent in Congo. This is happening with this regime who's using special force and the special presidential guard to kill civilians, to kill those people protesting.
Nevertheless, they have appointed a figure as a new prime minister who's broadly seen as kind of like from the opposition, might be a different part of the opposition from you, but isn't that some gesture of the government towards kind of moving forward?
Again, I'll come back to this. The government is always playing the game of ignoring the value of law. This called the new Prime Minister was, again, another scenario created by the government just to abandon the respect of the value of Constitution. At the moment, the only scenario to have a legitimate government is to have election.
Right. Now, practically speaking, does Mr. Kabila not have a point when he says it would take a long time to arrange the elections? His point and his supporters' point is always that the electoral roll simply doesn't exist, updated form, in order to have a fair election.
He has got an argument. That's a complete fabrication. He had more than time to organize election. He just didn't want to do that.
No, sure, that's a different question, though. Yeah. Even if it was his responsibility and he hasn't organized it before now, would it be possible to have an election tomorrow?
There is a possibility to have election within 3 months.
Really?
Yes.
That's a practical and a sound deadline. That's interesting to hear.
But the only thing we can have election at the moment, everybody's waiting for it. And when asking people to go for the enrollment, it's going to take less than a few weeks.
What happens between now and then? Let's suppose there's a 3-month roadmap. What should happen? Would Mr. Kabila stay on, in your view, as an interim president, a caretaker?
No, he can't. He can't. Definitely Mr. Kabila have to step down. And I believe that if we have to use justice here, he should be arrested. This is a person who has exposed the value of the country. His mandate is expiring today. He's got no right to stay in Congo at the moment.
That's pretty strong language. I mean, that's.
But we have to be fair at the moment. We're going to speak about the justice. He had the power to organize election. He did ignore all the process with him. The Article 69 of the country constitution give him the power to lead the country, including all the institutions. He didn't want to use the power was given to him, completely come to a position that he breached the law. He should be arrested because at the moment the country is chaotic.
In practical terms, he has power. He also has power in the practical sense of the loyalty of the armed forces as well. So where does that leave you? Who do you look to try to bring about a change when no change appears to be indicated from Mr. Kabila and his supporters?
But at the moment, the Catholic did play a very good role, which the Catholic Church. He should allow them to have this happening. His group did refuse all the instructions given by the Catholic Church, and they're now going to Rome to discuss what could be done.
And what about regional players? Do you look to neighbouring countries? Do you look to the international community? Because Mr. Kabila, he's rather good at ignoring that kind of pressure. He digs his heels in.
Which is common, Mr. Kabila. He had a internal policy of abusing the value of international law. You can hear from his Minister of Communication, who's even insulting publicly the influence of international community.
But if his habit of mind,
calling Congolese national as a foreigner because they don't have the right to speak for the freedom.
If his habit of mind is to dig his heels in, calling for his arrest, as you just did, is not really going to get us anywhere, is it?
But there's a possibility because that's what the law said. Mr. Kabila did not respect the value of the Constitution. He bring the country to a chaotic situation at the moment. He didn't want to even organize the Senate election. The National Parliament election was not organized. The local Chamber of Parliament election was not organized. So he done intentionally to lead the country to a situation where, according to our country constitution, no one can lead Congo if they're not elected. At the moment, we don't have any legal institution at the moment. Kabila had the power to organize this. He bring the country to a chaotic situation. Having having him in power again is abusing the value of stability of the Congo.
Many thanks indeed for coming in. Okito Tongomo, President of the Congolese Support Group, an activist and opposition group based here in London. Many thanks indeed for coming in.
Thank you.